Hey guys, welcome to Quinian's Budget Crafts. I'm going to do a real quick video here to show non-modelers, just people who like to do 3D printing, a couple things I can do without actually having to learn to model. We're going to start with Blender, just ignore this and whatever. I was working on something else here in the background, but the first thing we're going to do is start with Blender and how to get rid of a base, because you may not want the base on there. It's kind of hard to print minis in resin with a base on them. So the first thing you're going to do, if you've never used Blender before, is go up to the Edit tab, go to Preferences, go to the Add-ons tab. In the magnifying glass, type in Bool, and that will bring up Bool Tool. Click on the little box to enable it. It'll autosave, you don't have to worry about that, so just click the box and then you can exit out of that. That will enable you to cut and merge things a little easier. So now go to File, go to Import, and whatever your file type is. It might be an object, chances are though it's going to be an STL, so just click on that. Navigate to the folder where your thing is, and double click to bring in your mini you want to mess with. Once it loads in here, Blender, you cannot navigate by right-clicking. That brings up context menus. So you have to use the middle mouse button, or in my case, I enabled in preferences to use Alt and Shift to move around because I like it better. But to each your own. Just use the middle mouse button or use Alt and mouse button. So once the model is loaded in, go ahead and click on the model. It should already be selected, but click on it anyway. And push Tab to go into Edit mode. And then click on the base, anywhere on the base, doesn't really matter, and push L on your keyboard to select the linked stuff. And then don't go ahead and just hit the delete, you don't want to delete it yet, and I'll show you why real quick here. What you want to do though is push P, and then separate by selection, tab out of edit mode, and now if you click on one of these, or you can use the number pad thing to click on stuff, you can go a straight on view, and then either click on this little wireframe here or just Shift Z to go to X-ray mode. Once you go to X-ray mode here, you can see that the model's feet are not flat at all, actually. So what you're going to do is click on the piece that you want to use as the cutter, and then Shift click the piece you want to cut away from, and then push Shift, Control, and minus. And if you have Bool Tool enabled, it will automatically go ahead and cut that off right where the flat base was and fill it in for you. There we go. And if we exit X-ray mode here, we can look around and see that, yep, the feet are now nice and flat. So when you go to set them on a base, you won't have to worry about them wobbling around or anything. And I know that this mini, because I printed them before, it's what I used on the fences video. This one will actually stand up on its own without a base. Okay, so now here's the other thing though. What if you go to click on your mini and you go to thing, go to edit to base, and the base looks like this. It's got a whole bunch of lines and stuff, and you click on it and it just selects the entire model. The mini is merged to the base. How do you get rid of it? It's not that hard. Just go to X or Y, whichever, doesn't matter, just straight across the side. Make sure everything is selected. If it's only one thing selected, push A to select all, and then go up here to the Mesh tab and click on Bisect. And this tool can be a little goofy, so just don't move your mouse. So you click and drag where you want it. It should snap to 0 plane automatically, but you may have to adjust it. So just click and drag a little bit, let go of the mouse. And if you end up with something like that where it went crooked, all that stuff is here in your plane normals. So we're just going to go ahead and make the lower number a flat 0, and the higher number, if it ever updates, and you can make the higher number a flat 1. And then click somewhere in this box. Don't click out here or you'll unselect the thing. And as long as you don't click out here anywhere, you can still move around to see if that's where you want it. And you're like, oh, well, that drew a line. It didn't do anything. Yeah, but everything, the direction the arrow is pointing is considered the outer, and everything below the arrow below this line is considered inner. So in this case, we're going to clear inner. And then if you look under it, you'll see it's got holes. So you can just click on Fill to take care of that real quick. And of course, if you wanted, you could grab this arrow to move it up and down. You could grab the little blue line here to change the angle it's sitting at. You can type it in manually so you know exactly what angles and stuff you're trying to do. But there we go. I cut the base off and his feet are nice and flat. So you just click away to confirm it. And there you go. No more base. Now, to export the models that you have removed the base from, it's very simple. You just click File, click Export, and whichever file type you want, probably STL, and then type in whatever you want it to be, and selection only, make sure that's picked, and export it. So now what if you have a mini that actually has a pretty decent base and you want to keep the base? Well, what you can do is the same thing. You go ahead and separate it like you would anything else. And then you can go ahead and click on just the base and export it. Problem is, like we saw before, this particular mini does not have flat feet, so he's not going to stick down to this base very well. What you can do though is, still using Bool tool, is you can select whichever one you want to use. I'm going to use the mini itself. Is you Shift D to duplicate. Just click, don't move the mouse at all. There are now 2 of them here. And then Shift click the base, and then Shift Control minus. And it'll look like nothing happened except that your mini is no longer selected. What happened though is the one you duplicated got removed in the process. And what it did is it cut the mini's feet into the base here where it was sitting. So now you can just export the mini with its goofy feet just like this, and then export this base just like this, and then this mini's goofy feet will fit into the little base with the pads you cut in. Just make sure to export each one of these or you're not going to have them. In this case, you would actually not worry about trimming the bottom of the mini's feet because you want the extra material sticking down to actually go into your base here. Or I guess you could make them flat and then put glue in here, I guess. I don't know, depends on how you want to glue your stuff. But that's how you cut the mini's feet out of the base portion if you wanted to keep the nice base. If the mini has been merged to the nice base, you can't really get away with that. You can still cut it off above the base and then export each of them separately. But that's a little tricky to do in Blender. I'll show you a better way to do that later. But while we're still in Blender, let's check out some other things you can do real quick. Alright, so these guys are a little rough still because I'm still working on them, but show you something else you can do real quick. There are a ton of weapon packs you can get on Blender. This axe is one I made myself, but there's a bunch of them you can get. So say you have somebody like this archer guy, and you're like, well, that's cool, but I don't really want an archer. I'd rather have him, have axes. Well, if your stuff has not been merged, then you can go ahead and separate the stuff like you did the base, and then just delete the pieces you don't want. And bring in the weapons from your weapon pack. If things aren't moving right because the origin is somewhere strange, just right click it, set origin to geometry, and now it'll move easier and it'll rotate around its own geometry, which is nice. So anyway, bring in the weapons that you have from the weapon pack. If it's way too big like this one, you can push S to scale it evenly and just rotate it around and put it where you want it. In the case of my minis, I have started making all of their hands very big. That way, as long as the weapon handle itself isn't too insanely big, you can just put that right in the hand. You don't have to worry about it being merged or anything. It should fit pretty good. There we go. And then you can Shift D to duplicate that, bring it over to the other hand. Oops, rotate it around. And now you have a mini who, I guess, was an archer because he still has his quiver, but now he's wielding dual axes. So there you go. You can just do that to change your weapons around. You can also, export this the same way, except what you're going to want to do is select all the things, right click and join, and then you'll export them out as one model. And it should work pretty well. And some minis aren't going to work that way because their hands are too small to fit the thing, or maybe the weapon's merged or whatever. Alright, so if you want to change a weapon out of a mini's hands, like say you want to take his pitchfork and give him the spear, but you go to edit mode and you click on the thing and you do that and he's all grouped together, you can still get rid of just the pitchfork. It's just a little bit of a pain. So what you're going to want to do is go to X-ray mode, and then I'm going to turn the normals off because that's distracting. And then select the part that you want to mess with. So this right in here, and of course all the pitchfork head, don't want any of that. And then you can go to mesh and bisect it. Now the reason you want to do it this way instead of selecting all is because if you go to draw your line across here to cut that off, and something in that plane would include maybe his arm right here or this portion of his leg and foot down here that you can't see off the edge of the screen, it would cut that too. So only select the part that you actually want to mess with, and then clear off whatever section that is. That's the wrong one. I want to clear outer. If you click on the wrong one, don't freak out because you can just unclick it. As long as you haven't clicked away, you're fine. Even if you did click away, Control Z is universal undo. Then we clear out the front of the pitchfork. I think it might have clicked away before it filled, which is fine because you can just go to edges. I keep wanting to say lines, it's edges. And you select this edge ring, this edge loop, whatever you call it. And push F to fill that in. So then you would just repeat that, just highlighting only the portion you want removed and getting rid of it. If you get something like his foot like I did just right there, hold down Control, box select the area you don't want, it'll deselect. Well, it's a very dense mesh, so better in X-ray mode. But yeah, there you go. That will get rid of anything you didn't mean to click on. And just do that to the rest of the stick, and then you can go ahead and put the spear in his hand. You saw how that works. But what if you don't want the spear in his hand like this? Because, I mean, why is he pointing the spear at the ground, right? That doesn't make any sense. You don't want it like this. What if you wanted him to have the spear a little up like that? Maybe straight ahead. Well, we can do that too. Let me clear off the rest of the stick and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so now you've got the old weapon removed. You want to put the new weapon on maybe about this angle here. So go ahead and put the thing where you want it. About like that, I think worked pretty good. So that might be a little bit extreme for this to work, but I'll show you how you can repose things a little bit. Go to pose mode, or not pose mode. Go to sculpt mode here. And then down here is this little angled brush, it's the pose brush. And the way that works is the inner ring is mostly what it's affecting, the outer ring is some of what it's affecting, and then those dots you see is what points it's trying to connect to. So you hit F to resize the brush, and you try to get to about the joints on the model as best you can, and then you can grab and move the joints. Now you see when I did that though, it messed up this portion of his arm. So what you can do is just go into the smooth brush or hold down shift. That'll turn any brush you're using into a smooth brush. And just sort of re-smooth that out. If it gets a little too smooth, because like I got rid of the texture of his clothes there, you can just go to the grab brush and pull it out to where it'll kind of work. You may end up with a little bit of model damage and goofiness when you do that, but there we go. Now his arm is holding spear at a better angle. Okay, say you wanted to do a slightly more advanced remix, not just switching out a weapon or something simple, like maybe you want this dude's face to be this skull. Well, you can do that too. Just grab your object and get it lined up, rotate it around and everything. Obviously, I've already done that. And that would look terrible, but I mean, you could. But to make it look nice, what you're going to do here is with this selected, go to sculpt mode, use the grab brush, and just squish everything into the helmet that you want to keep. And if you were just switching it out for the skull itself, you could just cut the head off. But if you're wanting to keep this helmet, you just push this mesh into that mesh. And mostly you want to make sure that it's not sticking out anywhere you don't want it to show. A good way to do that is to go over here and select matte cap, and then tell it to, this one you can change what it looks like. Gray is fine, stay with gray. But you can tell it to do random colors. Now you can see what part of what model is what. So that's pretty helpful. So now I know that I want the purple to be hidden in this helmet. I don't want to see any purple sticking out anywhere. So now that that's pretty good, his face is still in the way, obviously. So we'll just switch over to the mini hair for sculpt mode. I did that with my hotkeys, so don't worry about that. You can use the thing down here. And then you can just smooth out all this stuff. Careful what you're smoothing. Don't get too close to the helmet or you'll mess that up. And then you can use the grab brush to push it in. If you can't quite get it to move how you want, like the eyes are kind of a problem because the skull has no eyes, is way in there. You can use the inflate brush and hold down Control, and that will make it a deflate brush. And you can use that to just deflate everything into his face there. If you get that weird crystallized look, your mesh has gotten all goofy, you can just smooth that out with the shift button. but you just push all the stuff into the other models so that the models are, one above or below the other. And if you're trying to push it around or whatever, it's just not cooperating, it keeps going wrong side out like that, what you can do is turn on the Dine Topo option. If you're working really close to the model, you can set your detail size to very big, or you can change the refined method. I'm used to scrolling out to get bigger mesh and in for finer mesh, and just because that's what I'm used to, I just adjust that. I'll make that 10. Now you can see it makes big old giant meshes out of it. And that'll make it easier to get it to cooperate and let you push it around without getting a jumbled mesh of super tight meshes. A lot of times where you have like a mesh that's already folded over, like the lips on the mouth here, a combination of just inflating it and then smoothing it back down to change the mesh size will actually fix most of the problems. You don't have to try and mush it too much. It'll cooperate for you. There we go. So I know skull face is a little extreme and does start bordering on actually modeling, but if you wanted to combine something like that to where you have skull face guy now, that's pretty much what you have to do. If you were to hollow this model, you might have some issues because the inside now has a skull in it. So what you can do is you can select your two models and shift control plus, and the bool tool should merge them cleanly. It may or may not, depending on how much stuff is sticking out. There we go. So yeah, it messed up. It kind of broke some of the teeth and stuff. I'm guessing that the skull model had full teeth without them being merged in, but still kind of gets that effect. If the models you're trying to merge together need to be very clean, or they're not going to merge nicely. But if it did merge properly, which this one kind of didn't, then this is what you should end up with, nothing inside of your model. So if you did want to hollow it, then you wouldn't have stuff in there causing problems for your hollowing. If you're not going to hollow it, don't worry about it. Just squish the face in there, call it a day, join these together, print it like that, because the inside's not going to matter. The merging is mostly for if it's hollowed. But yeah, zooming around, you can see I've got some sticking out right there. And then on this model itself, if I separate by loose parts, yeah, I've got all these different separate teeth and stuff. So all that would have to be merged first for this to actually cooperate. You can't have multiple pieces and merge things together. It won't cooperate that way. All it has to be one clean model to start with. But yeah, that's how that works. So I mean, if you wanted to get really crazy, play around with the brushes in sculpt mode, mushing stuff together, and then merge it if it's clean. Or if you're not going to print it hollow, don't worry about merging. It'll be fine. It'll be a bigger file size, but it'll be fine. So yeah, there's a ton of stuff Blender can do. If you look across the top, you got layout, modeling, sculpting, UV, you get the idea. There's a lot of things you can do in Blender, a lot of more stuff I could show you. There's tons of things I don't know how to do actually. But yeah, Blender is really, really good now. 2.92 is what I'm using. 2.7, 2.8 were kind of bad. 2.9 is definitely really, really good. So definitely pick up Blender. But if you didn't really want to do that, all you care about is cutting bases off. You're not going to be reposing and remixing and stuff like that. Well, there's a better tool for that actually. It's called 3D Builder. This comes with Windows 10 by default, and that's what it looks like when you open it up, except these are my most recently opened models. So you just click on Open. These are your recent things. There's a library of stuff they have included, which, there it goes. My internet's so slow. Anyway, yeah, library of stuff that's included. But go ahead and load up whatever object you want. I'm just going to use the dude with the base. Pretty sure this is the one that's merged. And there's your model. You select what you want the units to be in. Probably not going to matter too much if you're not actually trying to model in here. You just cut a base off. Hit Import Model. If it had any errors, my models don't have errors, then it would be in the corner down here. You could click on it and it would sort that out for you. So now what you can do is click on your model itself, go to Edit, go to Split, and it brings up a plane. Then you can just grab there's also movement in here. It's confusing me. Right click moves the whole screen, left click moves the angle. So grab the plane and bring it down to where you want to make your cut. There we go. And if you wanted to adjust the angle of the plane or whatever, you can do that with the angled thing and whatnot. Anyway, decide if you wanted to keep just the bottom, just the top, or both, and hit split. It'll think about it for a second. And there you go. Cut off nice and neat. Feet are nice and flat, just like the bisect tool, except a little more lightweight. You don't have quite as many options in this, or at least not that I'm familiar with how to use. But if all you're doing is just trimming the base off and throwing it away, this is way faster. Then of course you just hit the save button and you're done. So the main thing that I like to use 3D Builder for, it's very good for this, is you can go to edit and hit split like you do, to cut the base off. And you can move your plane around however you want your things split. But you're going to want to keep both halves of it. And this is to make things that are too big to fit on your print bed smaller so they'll fit. So get your plane how you want, make sure it's on keep both, go ahead and split it. And the way the selection works is it deselects whichever half you clicked on. So if you want the bottom half and you click on the top, now you've got the bottom. I don't know why, but okay. Go ahead and scoot that over. Go to the rotate thingy here. We're just going to flip that over 180 degrees. Now that's nice and flat. And then I want the top, and I can move it down to the floor, and it'll snap once it gets there. There we go. And now we have our model split. If you were to save or export it this way, you're going to have both pieces, and if you want each half in order to make them like a really big print or something, what you're going to do is pick whichever one or the other, and you go to Object, and you click on Cut. And what that will do is actually save it to the clipboard for later, so you can paste it back in. But we're going to cut that out for now. Go to this one, and save as bottom. I already have one bottom because I messed it up. And we're going to change the file type to STL. And we go back in here, and delete the bottom half, and Control V to paste the top half. Do the exact same thing. Make sure it's on STL format. Make it top. And then when you go to your slicer, you got the bottom there and the top. You can bring them both in for fun. So they're way too big. But yeah, now I can print these separately to actually make sure that they fit on the print bed here, because the bars is a little small. But anyway, that's how you split things out with 3D Builder. It's a really, really handy tool for that. It's mostly what I use it for. One quick note about remixing things, like this Ocarina you just saw me messing with. When you go to remix stuff, that's totally fine. Most people really don't care, especially if you're fixing something or whatever. You've even got a remix it button here, and Thingiverse will automatically make it so that it tags that you've remixed it. But when you do go to mess with files, make sure you scroll down here and you check the license. It's even got a clickable thing. You can click on that, it'll pop up exactly what all this stuff means. So you are free to share it, you're free to remix it. If you do that, you must give appropriate credit to the people that originally made the thing. Can't use it for commercial purposes. And if you share your remix, you got to use the same license it was on. So this Ocarina was made by Nimade. Nimade? I can't pronounce your name, dude. I'm sorry. But anyway, yeah, this is who made this thing. This is the Thingiverse file where you can find it. That would be considered appropriate attribution. You can't take one of these things and be like, oh yeah, look what I made, when you've got 3 or 4 models all piled together. You have to, say, I got these models from these people, this is a remix. If you claim that it's your original work, that is straight up theft and a real jerk move. And if you do that on the Dungeoneers Discord, I will automatically ban you without a word. So don't do that. Make sure you, say who you got the thing from. These people worked really hard on these things. Now look, this guy even credited this guy because he remixed it from this one. So yeah, there's remixes on remixes. So there you go, guys. Hopefully between little mini Blender tutorial and a quick look at 3D Builder, you can figure out how to do some real basic remixing, reposing, and just some minor editing of your minis without having to do any kind of real sculpting. Of course, as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.